morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Calvin Butenhoff coming to you live from our studio in downtown Waukesha. You can always join us. You can call, you can text. It is the same number, 855-752-4842, or leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Very busy show today. We have a couple of guests coming up next hour. At 11:06, Deborah Clifton and Jackie Leiden will be joining us. There is going to be a dramatic staged reading of the Sinclair Lewis book, It Can't Happen Here, which was written in the 1930s, kind of a dystopian novel as Hitler was coming to power overseas. What would happen if the same kind of thing would happen in America? Again, this was written, I believe it came out in 1935. We're going to talk to Deborah and Jackie to find out about this staged dramatic reading for what is being called It Can't Happen Here Again. And that is going to happen at the Waukesha Public Library on July 19th at 4 p.m. So those ladies joining us coming up at the top of next hour. And then, of course, at 11:33 every Wednesday, public service announcement with Dr. Laura Hanks. We found an article that talks about men who suffer from postpartum depression.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that interesting? And then we also thought, because, of course, we're heading into the 4th of July holiday weekend, 4th is tomorrow, we're going to talk about potential accidents and what you can do when you get, I don't know, a fishing hook in your hand.
First step, call 911.
Call 911. Yeah, so that's all coming up at 11:33. I hope you will stick around for that. We're going to start off, though, with a segment that we're calling One Bad Debate versus He Said What?
Yeah.
This is kind of a different version of Memory Lane that we have done from time to time. President Biden, of course, will be back in Wisconsin. He's stopping in Madison on Friday. Don't have a lot of details about where he is going to be in Madison, but I'm sure that once it is announced, we will have Civic Media on the ground there in some capacity or another. And of course, this visit comes just on the heels of the bad debate last week.
Correct.
And it was a bad debate.
Yeah.
There is no question about it. Joe Biden did not perform well in the debate. One bad debate.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we remember what it was like under the previous administration. You know, there's all these calls from some that President Biden should step down, get out of the way for the November election. And I did see on some of the texts coming in earlier, why during the course of 4 years did no one ever call for Trump to step down?
Yeah.
Never. Even after 34 felonies. Nobody said, hey, Trump, maybe you should get out of the race. This kind of looks bad.
No, in fact, if anything, it made him seem like a better candidate to some. That's the weird thing.
That he got convicted of 34 felonies?
Oh, I mean, my gosh, I see billboards all over 94 saying, you know, your nominee is a convicted felon. You're like, yeah, that's right. And then people on social media saying, I'm voting for a convicted felon.
Well, okay, embrace that. I guess that's your thing.
Yeah.
Let's take a little trip down memory lane with some clips under the previous administration. Calvin, let's play clip number 1 when we're talking about the COVID outbreak in which over 1 million Americans died. Let's play clip number 1, Calvin. This is Donald Trump talking about COVID.
So when we have a lot of cases, I don't look at that as a bad thing. I look at that as, in a certain respect, as being a good thing, because it means our testing is much better. So if we were testing 1 million people instead of 14 million people, we would have far fewer cases, right? So I view it as a badge of honor. Really, it's a badge of honor. It's a great tribute to the testing and all of the work that a lot of professionals have done. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then he didn't want the cruise ship to land because the COVID numbers would go up. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah. They came in, the numbers would go up.
And he didn't want that on his count because it looked bad.
It's sound logic. All right. When there are more of something, then more of something happens.
Yeah.
So let's not make that more happen.
Right.
Because we don't count COVID numbers at sea.
Well, and at one point, of course, he said that he wanted to slow the testing down because when you test, you find more cases. Yep, that it does tend to be how that works.
Yeah.
You test more, you find more cases. That's kind of the whole goal of testing.
Yeah, we'd be happy if we tested and there were less cases.
That'd be great.
but we don't want to have, the logic once again does not hold water.
One bad debate versus he said what?
Yeah.
Calvin, let's play clip number 2. Donald Trump talking about guns.
During my 4 years, nothing happened, and there was great pressure on me having to do with guns. We did nothing. We didn't yield. And once you yield a little bit, that's just the beginning. That's the avalanche begins.
We did nothing.
You know
Well
what?
done, us.
You know who was patting him on the back while he said that? Our very own Ron Johnson, because he's all about doing nothing as well.
Absolutely. And they're good at that.
Absolutely.
Especially as evidenced by, I don't know, the least productive House in U.S. history, not to mention the Wisconsin legislature, which we spent a lot of time talking about yesterday. They should get a medal for doing nothing.
They should get like memory foam pillows, and so they can take their naps while they're vacationing.
Something.
And for this Congress to be the least productive Congress in U.S. history is saying a lot, because it seems like every year they're hitting that low water mark every single time. And this year they're like, you know what? It's like we didn't even show up at all.
Well done, us.
Yeah, good job.
Well done, us.
I should get a raise.
We are doing a little trip down memory lane. President Joe Biden expected to be in Madison for a rally this coming Friday. Not a lot of details available at this time, but I'm sure that Civic Media will be there in some capacity. So we're just talking about, yes, Joe Biden had a bad debate last week. There is no question about it. I don't think that there's anyone that's trying to fluff that differently, but I don't understand how one bad debate performance loses to 4 years of lunacy.
Well, also loses to 4 years of absolute growth. I mean, the 4 years, 2016, 2020, I mean, come on now. And I'll stay on track. But 2020 to 2024, there is nothing but a report card of job growth, economic growth.
Look at the stock market.
We haven't said it in a while, but we're going to say it again right now. The economy is doing really well, and it's doing better than you think. We all think the economy sucks because our jobs don't pay us as much as we want, because we can't get a house, and those are all real problems.
Without a doubt.
But those are problems that the president, you can't lay that at his door. There's all these different mitigating factors. There's congressional problems. There's private institution problems, stock market, all these things. So when you look at the pure numbers of job growth, quarterly growth,
look at that GDP.
The GDP, the stock market, the fact that inflation pretty much stays where it is. Now, it could be lower. That's great. We would love it to be lower, but it's not. But it's at about 3.2 right now. That's 1.2% over the desire. That's doing really well. And that's all under the auspices, all under the watch of Joe Biden. So once again, as you said, Jane, one bad debate, we can't wipe out 4 years of good.
Memory lane, as we start off the show this morning on the day before the 4th of July. Yes, Joe Biden had a poor debate last Thursday. We're just comparing that to some of the numerous things that former President Donald Trump said during the course of his 4 years in office. Calvin, let's play this clip on Donald Trump and his relationship with God.
I go to church a lot, always on Christmas, always on Easter, always when there's a major occasion.
So a Catholic.
And during the Sundays, I'm a Sunday church person. When we go in church and when I drink my little wine, which is about the only wine I drink, and have my little cracker, I guess that's a form of asking for forgiveness. And I do that as often as possible because I feel cleansed. We were having fun when I said, I drink the wine. I eat the cracker. If I do something wrong, I think I just try and make it right. I don't bring God into that picture.
Yeah, he doesn't ask for forgiveness because
No,
he doesn't do anything that requires forgiveness.
I don't bring God in the picture. Didn't you send a bunch of troops to manhandle protesters so you could take a picture of yourself in front of a church holding a Bible? Wait for it. Upside down.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, also, for those who don't know what he meant by cracker, that's the Eucharist, which is the blessed bread that is the body of Christ. To refer to it as a cracker and then in the same breath say, I'm a church man, I go to church all the time. No, you're not. No, you don't. Shush yourself.
There's so much photographic evidence of Donald Trump in church.
Yeah.
Oh, what? No, there's not.
No.
No, there's not. Because unless there's a private chapel in Mar-a-Lago somewhere, we don't see him go to church.
The bathroom where they had all the files.
Is that where it is?
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
small extra chapel.
Exactly.
Cindy from Appleton is on the line. Good morning, Cindy. Thank you so much for joining us. What did you want to say?
Good morning. Well, first of all, I don't think any church has actually claimed him as a parishioner. But I just wanted to say thank you for putting this into some perspective, because I was pretty disappointed with Biden's performance last week, and hopefully that hasn't turned so many people off that they don't watch the other ones, if there are other ones.
Well, and
I was with a
go ahead, Sadie. Sorry.
But anyways, I was with some Trumpers this weekend, and their theory is that Biden has crashed the economy. He was the reason we crashed the economy during COVID. Nobody else had anything to do with it. Inflation is all his fault, and the economy right now is tanking under him. How do you come back with these people who have just been so ingrained in this lie? I mean, I don't know how to respond to these people. I mean, I tried my best, but it was like talking to a wall.
Yeah. Cindy, I'll give you two options. One, don't waste the space. You've got precious RAM in your head, and you got to take care of important things for you. You most likely will never change their mind. And I don't mean to sound like a downer saying that, but those individuals want to believe what they believe. If you want to engage in a discussion and they say that the economy is terrible, say to me, show your work. Show me the information that you're getting that shows the economy is awful. And then you can go to various places that will show you the economy is doing good to great. And they have to deal with it, but they won't accept what you're saying, because everything you're saying is a lie. Everything is fake news. It's the deep state. So honestly, Cindy, if they're friends and that you love them, I would say let them talk and just enjoy the margarita you're sipping on a boat, because you got better things to do with your time.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Really appreciate you checking in as always. And thank you so much for listening. We got to go to break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Kelby on the board, coming to you from our studio in downtown Waukesha, where you can join us, you can call, you can text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Just a reminder, if you're going to be out and about this afternoon, our very own Johnny Watermelon, Civic Media Ambassador, going to be out at the Pewaukee Farmers Market today from 3 to 6:30 p.m. So look for the big Civic Media tent. Johnny will have treats for your dogs.
Ooh, he might have treats for humans too.
He has treats for the kids. So stop by and see Johnny Watermelon out at the Pewaukee's Farmer Market today from 3 until 6:30. Coming up at 11:06, we are going to be talking to two of our guests, Deborah Clifton and Jackie Leiden, joining us in studio. There's going to be a special dramatic reading at the Waukesha Public Library on July 19th at 4 p.m. This is a dramatic, slightly altered reading of the Sinclair Lewis novel, It Can't Happen Here.
Yeah.
This is called It Can't Happen Here Again. I highly encourage you to stop and listen to that. Right now, though, we are talking about one bad debate versus he said, what?
What?
What? So we just played the clip. Donald Trump talking about how he loves God in church he's a Sunday church guy,
The
as
wine
opposed
and-
to the Tuesday church guy, I guess. I'm not sure.
My Aunt Adeline was a everyday church person every day. She went every single day.
Did she really?
St. Joe's right down here
Oh,
downtown.
good for her.
Oh yeah, she was such a good Catholic.
She was a good Catholic.
Mhm.
All right. So again, yes, Joe Biden had a terrible debate last Thursday.
Yeah.
And Andrew on the live stream, I thought, had a really good comment. In your opinion, how important is an unscripted debate performance in the role of president? Isn't it more about presidenting and actually accomplishing things and
Yeah.
getting things done because you are surrounded by competent people?
Mm-hmm. I mean, some would say that Hillary Clinton was not the best campaigner on earth. She wasn't. Do you know what she was? A world-class, teach a class on her politician.
Yes.
With loads of experience. There was a comment that came through here through Chris Casper in Madison said, remember when Howard Dean got blackballed for dying? Wah!
Yep, I remember
Democrats are really good at eating their own. Republicans never do that. The march in lockstep at all time. And you know what, Cindy? I get what you're saying when you were calling. It got you. It got all of us. We got shaken. We got rattled. And that's fine. Examine. What do we need to do? Let's move on together. And we got a great candidate who is getting things done. And I think I mean, we are also not the party higher ups. You know, if they want to have those conversations.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's happening at different levels than the Matenaer On Air staff.
I wasn't invited.
Shockingly
I was
enough.
not invited to that Zoom meeting.
I know. I'm kind of hurt that we got skipped over for that. And I do want to remind folks as well, the stock market under Donald Trump took the biggest dump it has ever seen compared to the Great Depression.
Yeah.
I was at work that day when the market opened.
Yeah.
Mouths were on the floor when that happened.
Well, and the stock market also took a huge crash 8 years before that in the housing market.
Yes.
Under
the 2008 crash.
The GOP.
Mm-hmm.
This is not without example. And once again, as you've titled it, one bad debate versus he said what? What is let's do another clip, James.
Let's play another clip. Calvin, let us play the D-Bank clip. I think people missed that.
You know, we have more liquid gold and wealth under our feet than any other nation. We have more liquid gold, oil and gas, more liquid gold. Well, I just met non-liquid gold. You know where it was? Iowa. It's called corn. It's non-liquid. That's much. You have more non-liquid gold. They said, what is that? I said, corn. They said, we love that idea. You know, that's a pretty cool thought, isn't it? That's a nickname in its own way, but we came up with a new couple of words for corn. We're also going to place strong protections to stop banks and regulators from trying to debank you from your, your political beliefs, what they do. They want to debank you, and we're going to debank. Think of this. They want to take away your rights. They want to take away your country. The things you're doing, all electric cars, give me a break. If you want an electric car, good, but they don't go far. They're very expensive.
D-Bank is not a thing.
No.
It's not a thing.
No. There's the bank. That's down the street.
There is, or there's Da Bank.
Da Bank.
Da Bank.
Or Duh Bank. I don't know.
But not D-Bank. No one is trying to debank you. Yeah. Mike from Kenosha is on the line. Good morning, Mike. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
You know, I don't think there's a more important global issue right now than the American presidential election, the upcoming election. Look at the impact that it would have if Trump were to gain the White House next year. What would happen to NATO? I think everybody that I've heard and talked to and what I've read about says it would be the end
Yep.
of NATO.
Yes.
Yep.
We have climate disasters that have been parked that we haven't dealt with. We have, systems that allow a debate like that to even occur when there's nobody calling out. The moderator is not calling out the lie after lie after lie, and it was a tsunami. All of us that were watching it around in our living room, we had a half a dozen friends and neighbors by. We're all looking at each other with the same look I think that Biden had on his face. What in the world is he talking about?
Yeah.
Here we are in the digital age, and we can't do in real time fact checking for our presidential debates. How odd!
Yeah.
Oh, we've talked about that, Mike. I mean, Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, and
Shame on them.
What a disappointment.
Yeah.
And that whole fire hose of lies thing is called Gish Gallop, and it just means spewing as many falsehoods as humanly possible in a row, which makes it impossible for anyone to respond to that in real time because the lies are just coming so fast and furious.
I think, Mike, you bring up a very good point too as well. Once again, Thursday happened. It's done. We need to move on. We need to focus that energy and attention on the election, on the Supreme Court decisions, on our own ballot that's going to be voted on in August here in Wisconsin. We need to be informed on what's happening right now because that's where our energy needs to be. Because you're absolutely right. He gets reelected. Goodbye to NATO.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's not even a question.
No, we've talked to numerous people from National Security Leaders for America, and they have talked about how disastrous this would be, not only for the United States, but for the entire global world order.
You can actually hear one of those interviews tomorrow on our best of episode. Bruce Heyman, we talked to him.
Just recently.
Yep.
Thank you so much for your call, Mike. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening. We have news on the way next. If you're on the line, stick around. We will be back. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Walking down the street, shooting people that I mean with my Robert Tommy water gun. Here come the deputies, gonna come and get me. I gotta get up and run. They got the sirens used. I ran right out of juice. They gotta put me in a cell if I can't go to heaven when they let me go to hell. Crazy, don't go crazy, you know.
Good morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Dr. Slide on the board, coming to you from our studio in downtown Waukesha. You can always join us. Give us a call, send in a text, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that Elon continues to actively ruin. Coming up right after the 11 o'clock news, really looking forward to having our guests, Deborah Clifton and Jackie Leiden, are going to be joining us in studio. There is going to be a special free stage dramatic reading of the Sinclair Lewis book, It Can't Happen Here, but this is called It Can't Happen Here Again. It's going to happen July 19th, 4 p.m. at the Waukesha Public Library. This novel written by Sinclair Lewis in the 1930s as Hitler was coming to power in Europe. And he writes this dystopian novel about what would happen should the same kind of leader come to America. Should be a very interesting discussion. I hope you can stick around for that. Right now, we are talking about one bad debate versus he said what. Yes, there's a lot of discussion about President Biden. He is 81 years old. He did not have a good debate performance last Thursday. I don't think anyone was arguing with that. I guess my point is one bad debate it? Throw out all the accomplishments, throw out everything that's happened under this administration and just toss him aside right now versus the guy who said it's seemingly endless list of things that make no sense.
Yes, and we have a long list of
We
those.
do have a long list. Calvin, let's play this next Trump on COVID clip.
So, supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that has him in check, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or
Powerful light.
in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right. And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute.
1 minute.
And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs
Like a
and it
dentist.
does a tremendous number in the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. So we'll see. But the whole concept of the light, the way it kills it in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful.
He's very smart, you know.
I'm glad he made the delineation between medical doctors, because I was going to call my sister-in-law, who has a PhD in statistics, to help out. She has some flashlights at home, and I think disinfectant too. Also, for all those listening, none of those ideas worked.
If you saw that happen in real time like I did,
Yeah.
and you can certainly find the clip if you Google for it, Dr. Deborah Birx is cringing and melting in her seat. She is trying to disappear into a hole in the floor as he is looking to her to confirm this complete lunacy that he's spouting.
Yeah.
It was painful to watch. Gary from Sussex has been waiting. Thank you for your patience, Gary. Thank you for joining us.
Well, guys, okay. One bad debate, right?
Correct.
Republicans have been saying for years how Biden is losing it. You guys excuse me, I can't say you guys, but I'm saying Democrats on the left have been denying this. We've been saying it for years because they've been showing it on television. They do not show it on MSNBC. They don't show it on CNN, okay? But now you saw it for the first time. So the fact of the matter is, we have to have a president who's in charge. How many times have you seen him go off script, and then he said, "Oh, I better go back on follow it because I'm going to get in trouble."
Are we talking about Joe Biden or
I'm the
Donald Trump
president.
right now, Gary?
Talking about Joe Biden here.
Okay, so you're
Okay.
talking about on script right now.
I like Joe Biden. I do not like him for president. Okay, I do not hate him. I was at a party on last Sunday, filled with MAGA Republicans, but there were some Democrats there also. Okay, and I went around and I asked 20 people, just random people. I said, "Do you absolutely hate Joe Biden. Not one Republican said yes. The Democrats that I asked, I said, do you absolutely hate Trump? And they said, yes. And it was 100% that way. What the heck is going on? The difference between Republicans and Democrats when not one Republican hates Biden, but every single Democrat does.
Well, I can't answer for those people, Gary. I don't know. I mean, but I guess I don't like to see hatred on anybody's side. I really don't. At the same time, that isn't what we're talking about right now.
No.
And I would like to know why you believe that Donald Trump is competent when we look at the things he has said in the past that are not so.
Is a big mouth. He is a extremely flawed person. I think as president, I think he did pretty good to okay. But we don't have any other choice than these two guys. When I voted for Donald Trump, I held my nose and I asked God to forgive me because I know this guy is not a moral person. But when we only have two people to pick from, or actually three, we got Robert Kennedy Jr., which is nobody likes, not the Republicans or the Democrats like, let alone his own family. We don't have a choice. I say, let's give Donald Trump another chance. I think the main problem that the Democrats have is that he appointed 3 conservative justices. I think that's the only really gigantic problem that they have with him. And the fact is that they hate him because they think that he's going to appoint 2 more or maybe 1 more justice.
Well, you understand though, Gary, women are kind of annoyed that the 3 justices he appointed lied during their confirmation hearings and said that Roe was established precedent, and then they overturned it. They just overturned the 40-year precedent of the Chevron doctrine. That's concerning. The fact that our Supreme Court and some of those same Supreme Court justices just ruled this week that the president essentially has complete and total immunity, that's worrisome. That should even be worrisome for you.
But I don't like the fact that you can have a president that can go out there and have elected leaders of foreign countries be assassinated. That's against the law.
That is.
But now it won't be.
Yeah.
Now it won't be, Gary. Thank you so much for calling, Gary. Really appreciate it. Do appreciate you listening. I guess I don't understand why you watch Fox when Fox is the network that was almost billed $1 billion, fined $1 billion for lying to its audience. That to me is not a credible institution.
And I also take issue with the idea that you say you held your nose voting for Trump, but you've said on multiple times, I am a mega Trump supporter. So we got to make up our minds, people. If you want to love him, that's fine. But if people hate Trump, I think there is very, very good reasons for some people to. I'm not going to advocate yes or no to that, but things like abortion access, that's a reason to dislike someone or hate them or whatnot. But polls at parties, this is not what we're talking about.
Well, and I saw something on Twitter, and I don't know exactly who this person is, but Brian H. Esquire says the Supreme Court now has overturned Roe v. Wade, 50 plus years of precedent, overturned Chevron, 40 years of precedent. C.J. Engel says, yep, we're coming for the Civil Rights Act next, and then the New Deal. We're going to repeal the 20th century.
Yeah.
That should be a concern for all of us.
And I'm going to keep saying it. You love him? Fine. You're going to vote for him? Fine. But there's going to come a day where you are not loyal enough. You are not hardcore enough.
Pure enough.
You are not the person who represents the Trump brand, which is America then. And they will have their way to deal with you in the laws they create.
Tom from LA has been waiting a long time. Thank you for your patience, Tom. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. First off, I don't hate Donald Trump. I just hate his policies. And Cindy, now you kind of know what it was like when Joe Biden had to deal with the debate. Trump even took credit for Obama and Biden actual policies in that debate.
Yep.
every time Trump's lips are moving, he is lying. So she was talking about a party. It must have been the same party Gary was at. But she was talking about a party, and she was talking about, how do I deal with all these people just giving me lies? Unfortunately, that's what Joe Biden had to deal with. He thought he probably was going in there good natured in terms of saying, hey, we're actually going to have a debate here, talk about the future, talk about childcare, talk about healthcare, talk about rent or mortgage, and talk about medical care. And here it was, Trump was doing was lying. And I would, if I were Joe Biden, say, I'll never debate this man again unless we have a fact checker in real time. And I would say the same thing for the people out there. If they don't have a fact checker in real time, all they're doing is spewing right-wing talking points.
Well, you're just giving him
And,
right.
That's it. I mean, all it is, it's the same thing every time. It's, what do they say about propaganda? Just repeat it over and over and over again, and it'll become fact.
It becomes the truth.
Donald Trump is very, very good at that. He's a very good huckster. He's a very good salesperson in that way. But he's the guy that gave the beanstalks to Jack, or the beans to Jack. That's who he is. He is a huckster criminal, and I just hope everybody really sees out there and says, who would I want watching my children for a night? Jill and Joe Biden, or Donald Trump and Melania? Because honestly, you really need to think about this before you actually pull the lever for Donald Trump.
Appreciate it, Tom.
Please go to.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Tom. 855-752-4842. If you would like to join the conversation. Tom from West Dallas, also being very patient. Thanks for joining us, Tom. What did you want to say?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Gary, I think who was this called, the second caller before?
Yeah.
Who says, let's give Trump another chance. What can he possibly do? You got to read 2025.
Yes.
And their whole agenda of what he wants to do. This is just insane. I am so mad at the Democrats who are against Biden right now, when you have Trump's people sitting there not saying a word about all his lies and his gaffes and stuff. They're all 100% behind him. Why can't the Democrats, and I understand it is a legitimate conversation, but to take it to this point, and I think is nothing more than a big distraction, they all should just start talking about 2025. And this whole debate about how feeble-minded Biden is will go away, because they got to put that in the mainstream media right now, not this other BS. Biden will come back. He will come back. I feel it. I know it. He will show people, but this is just insane.
Yeah, I hear you, Tom. Absolutely. And that's kind of what we're trying to highlight this morning is the difference. Yes, Joe Biden had a bad debate last week. Yes, he's 81 years old. So Trump is what, 78?
Yeah, they're not very.
And Joe Biden can still ride a bicycle. I don't know. I think that's good. We're going to keep this going for one more segment, and then we have special guests coming into the studio. Stay close. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
All night. Morning light. Party all night. I want to get you on this Jamaican rock and do this thing right. Just like that. Do the funk like that. Let them do it. Let them do it. Yeah. I never put this in the reggae scene to it like that. That was all right, y'all. Listen, let me get you doing. Let me do it. Yeah. Cassandra, let's shake. You're running out to the ground. Let's shake. Running out to the ground. Let's shake. Just shake. Everybody in the house, just shake. You're running out to the ground. If you're ready for night action, dancing to the beat with a passion. This the love party is happening. Doing anything you imagine. Take feelings on that action. Dancing to the beat with a passion. This the love party is happening. Doing anything you imagine. Get up, stand up.
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Calvin coming to you live from our studio in downtown Waukesha. You can join us. You can call. You can text at 855-752-4842 or leave a comment on the live stream if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and or Twitter. President Biden will be stopping in Madison on Friday. Not a lot of details have been released right now, but I have no doubt Civic Media will be there in some capacity. And we're doing a segment called One Bad Debate because it was a bad debate last week between President Biden and Donald Trump. I don't think anybody is going, no, it was great. That was when it went exactly like they planned.
Hey,
No.
Barack Obama had a terrible first debate in 2012. Ronald Reagan had an awful debate in, I think it was 84. It happens.
It does happen. But that's why we're doing One Bad Debate versus He Said What?
Yeah.
Another version of memory lane because we tend to forget what happened during the 4 years under the Trump administration. Calvin, let's play this clip of Trump on Roe.
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
I cannot adequately put into words the trauma and despair that comes with waiting to either lose your own life, your child's life, or both.
If it weren't for me with Roe v. Wade, you wouldn't even be talking about this.
And now they're all trying to back away from it.
Oh, yeah.
Any Republican candidate is removing all of their support for 100% pro-life. Yes, yes, yes. Oops, that's no longer on my website, huh?
Yeah, Eric Hovde has been kind of weird about it, too.
Let's not
Wanted
talk
to bring
about that.
Eric
Can we
Hovde.
talk about something else? John from Milwaukee is on the line. Thank you for joining us, John. Thank you for listening.
Hi, thank you for your show. I just called in. I was listening to the previous caller talking about the Project 2025, and I've gone to that site and tried to read it. It's 900 pages, and I think the Democratic Party is failing here. They should have a team of people busted out by chapter, and have bullet points as to what is in this totality. There's no way the American people are going to, I'm not going to read 900 pages.
Right.
And it has to be gone through and brought forward as far as what are the effects of this in the first 6 months. They're talking a game plan of 180 days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's serious, firing 50,000 workers because they contributed to a Democrat. I mean, these are absurd tactics that they're moving in, but telling people to go to Project 2025 is not the solution. It's got to be boiled down.
Yeah, John, we've had several guests on to talk about this. I think we started a couple of months ago with Joseph Heckey trying
honestly,
to break this down because you're right. I haven't read all 900 pages of it, but not only is this a playbook for Trump, in my estimation, this is the Republican playbook going forward for any Republican candidate for president, in which they're going to abolish the Department of Education. They are going to demolish the Department of Health and Human Services and set up the Department of Life.
They're going to,
I mean, there's stuff in Project 2025 that will fundamentally change life in America.
They're going to defund NOAA. They're going to abolish NOAA, the National Oceanic.
Well, because we don't want to talk about bad things like, hurricanes and wildfires and tornadoes. So we're going to put loyalists into the National Oceanic Administration who are going to come up with scenarios that we want. Do you really think you're going to get accurate information about what is heading your way under a Trump administration if it's going to make them look bad?
Tom from West Dallas just texted in, and this has to do with Project 2025. As far as Trump and the reproductive rights, I'm sure the Republicans already have their menstrual cycle app ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to track them.
They're going to track women, yes.
Yes, this is absolutely what's going to happen. They're going to take down anyone who disagrees with them. And if you disagree with them, well,
you're not loyal.
You're not loyal. And
Gitmo for you, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. And then what does that mean for us? Me and you, Jane, we are audibly dissenters right now.
We should probably be tried for treason.
Yeah. Can we go to like radio jail? That sounds fun.
We have time for one more clip, and I think this is special.
Yeah.
One Bad Debate versus He Said What? Calvin, let's play Sharks and Batteries.
because of MIT, my relationship to MIT.
Oh.
Very smart. He goes, I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery's now underwater and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there.
Oh.
By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. Well, they weren't really that angry. They bit off the young lady's leg because of the fact that they were not hungry, but they misunderstood who she was.
Well, but they didn't know
These
there was
people are crazy.
It was Sue.
He said there's no problem with sharks. They
They thought
just
it was
didn't really
stew.
understand a young woman swimming now really got decimated, and other people too. A lot of shark attacks. So I said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards, or here. Do I get electrocuted?
Oh.
If the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking. Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, nobody's ever asked me that question. I said, I think it's a good question. I think there's a lot of electric current coming through that water. But you know what I'd do if there was a shark?
What?
Or you get electrocuted? I'll take electrocution every single time. I'm not getting near the shark. So we're going to end that. We're going to end it for boats. We're going to end it for trucks. The truck.
What?
There's two things about that. One, tell me more about Joe Biden going off script. Okay? Complain to me more about Joe Biden going off script, because all of a sudden, shark bites are up. Who told you that? And second, if you watch the video, when he says, this is both funny and scary, when he says, I'll take electrocution, a gentleman on his left, our right, it looks to his buddy and goes, oh, yeah, I'd take electrocution.
Oh, me too. Oh, yeah.
Because the boss said so, I'll take electrocution. Those sharks, they ate Sue. They didn't know it was Sue.
He's so smart. His uncle worked at MIT,
He's
professor adjacent.
Professor adjacent. What did you say to me before? It's like, I have a brother-in-law who's a doctor.
You are
I'm basically a doctor.
Well, he's a neurosurgeon, right?
He's a neurological oncologist.
You are a neurosurgeon, Greg Bach, because
thank
that's
you.
your brother-in-law.
I'm Dr. Adjacent. I love it.
And let's give him the nuclear codes because we can all sleep well.
Off script.
News is coming up next. Stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
We know and we understand. Almighty God is a living man. You can fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the time. So now we see the light. We gonna stand up for our rights. Yeah. So you better get up, stand up in the morning. Give it up, stand up for your rights. Stand up right now. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Don't give it up, don't give it up. Get up, stand up, get up, stand up, stand up for your right. Get up, stand up, get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Get up, stand up, stand up for your right. Get up.
good morning, and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Calvin Butenoff coming to you live from our studio in downtown Waukesha. You can join us, you can call, you can text 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Very excited to have two guests in studio with me. Deborah Clifton is a former actress and actor and used to be with Theater X. She is joining us along with Jackie Leiden, who is an author and the Wisconsin State Chair for Writers for Democratic Action. And Jackie's also on the National Steering Committee. Good morning, ladies. Thank you so much for coming into the studio.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Deborah, pull that up a little bit closer.
I'm here.
So Deborah walked into our studio last week. Was it last week, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And said, I thought you might be interested in talking about this. And when I really took a look at it, what you're doing is very, very ambitious and very interesting. Coming to the Waukesha Public Library on July 19th at 4 p.m., a free staged dramatic reading of It Can't Happen Here Again. So this is based on the Sinclair Lewis novel, It Can't Happen Here, from the 1930s, correct?
Right. Exactly.
And it's a dystopian novel about what would happen if a fascist leader, much like Hitler, came to America and the ramifications this would have on our country, correct?
Well, of course, at the time that Sinclair Lewis, who was then on his way to becoming the only American who'd ever been awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature, he did fictionalize it, but there was no fiction in the fact that Hitler was amassing power in Europe and that the reaction to that in the United States was quite complacent at the time. So it was seen as a warning as to what exactly could happen here. And there were other things that are correspond to today as well, like the rise of right-wing media. In that time, as Father Coughlin, who was exciting people against immigrants and against a lot of the freedoms that we enshrine. So there were really uncanny parallels to what's going on today.
So the demonization of immigrants goes back decades.
Oh, it goes back to the 19th century. It goes back to the middle of
18th
the
century.
Yeah,
You know, anybody who came in had to pass a test, whether they could survive or not.
There was a ban against Chinese immigration for decades after they had been working on the U.S. railroads.
For
The
all those
Irish
years.
had a lot of time, and of course, we need not even. I mean, of course, and we also, of course, have seen that historically with the Black population. So that isn't new, but the spread of misinformation and the taking away of freedoms that protect equality is what's at stake.
Well, when we look at what the Supreme Court has just done over the last week, with essentially giving almost complete immunity to past and future presidents, the overturning of the Chevron doctrine, which is going to again take expertise out of scientific decisions and give that power to judges, which what could possibly go wrong there? This is concerning. It should be a big concern.
I spent
Oh,
a lot of
please.
time as an NPR reporter. I was with NPR for 35 years, and I was a Middle East correspondent. And many of the things that we see happening here today, like the pushing of a theocratic regime, that's that is what Iran is. And to see that those things would have any correspondence here, or that people like Viktor Orban in Hungary would, that the conservative CPAC would meet there.
Yeah.
It does puzzle me because I don't know if most Americans are aware of what it means to take away expertise, to take away protections of equality, to centralize. This is historic, giving the president these powers of immunity. I mean, that upends 1776.
Right. And we have also just encountered blockages of trying to vote. Our voting freedoms for the last election, elections ago, in Milwaukee, they had closed voting places. So it would take one voting place, it would take 3 hours of standing there. And at that time, Governor Walker said no one was allowed to get drinks of water.
Right.
So it's brutal.
And they want to make you work for it. They want to make it hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
And try people's patience. And again, as you said, close down a whole bunch of polling places, especially in the state's largest municipal area, and just hope that people give up when you've been standing in line for 3.5 hours.
In that horrible city.
Yes.
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 Horrible.
Yes.
I love Milwaukee, and I will defend it till the death. Anyway, though I do live in Waukesha now.
Well, and we're going to get to that in just a little bit. So tell me what is going to happen at this free stage dramatic reading of It Can't Happen Here Again coming up at the Waukesha Public Library on July 19th.
Well, we have a script that's been rewritten from the original play, which is kind of an agitprop thing that Sinclair Lewis had presented in 1936, right before the election that elected Roosevelt, that started the New Deal. In fact, this was a landslide for Roosevelt, and who, in part because of this play, and in part because of the national. It wasn't a CCC program; it was
It was beginning in the WPA.
the WPA. So all these actors, writers, directors, anyone who worked in theater were hired by the U.S. government, part of the CCC things, the
Oh,
WPA, and they would do free performances everywhere. Um, besides Sinclair Lewis, who was on the
Well, there was, of course, Dorothy Parker. There were other Liebling. There were other playwrights, but this became the first political one that was nationwide. They performed it in over 17 states just before the 1936 election. 21 different stages. I'm proud to say, have tripled that. I think we're up to 60.
wow.
Now anybody can do this. This is each one teach one. We on Writers for Democratic Action's website, writersfordemocraticaction.org. If you go to events, you will see what we are doing. You can download the script. It's meant to be 30 pages long for 5 people. Deborah and I will be performing at the Waukesha Public Library on July 19th. But there are before we get off the air, there are 4 other performances, in Milwaukee. There's also one in Sturgeon Bay
Great.
at Novel Bay Bookstore. So anyone is welcome to do this, and, you can contact me if you'd like, or Deborah. You are
yes,
Deborah.Clifton.
Deborah Cliff at gmail.com.
That's right. And I'm Jackie, Jecki.Leiden, Oiden @gmail.com. Or you can just go to writersfordemocraticaction.org.
We'll put a link into that website in
Great.
our show notes.
Great.
It takes about an
Wonderful.
hour after the show is over for Greg to get those posted and include those links. So if you would like to learn more about performing this in your own community, this is what you're talking about, Jackie, right?
Absolutely.
And what is it that is so impactful about this piece?
Well, I think it was adapted by a Milwaukee native, Wes Savick, who's from Shorewood and who directed at Theater X with Deborah and her husband, John Kishloff.
Yeah, he and I had co-written a play at one point. So Wes was in Theater X for about 3 years, and a very, very smart guy. And now he's teaching out east at a university.
And he's coming back, and the kickoff performance will be Thursday night, July the 18th at Anodyne Coffee Roasters on Bruce Street in Walker's Point.
Great.
That's July 18th, the last night. So it's timed to the end of the Republican National Convention. So the question was, what are we doing exactly?
Well, and when people come to see this, what can they expect to see?
They'll see 5 people with scripts, and we will be reading different characters. It's kind of rhythmic. It's one of the characters is Dorothy Parker. One of the characters is Margaret Atwood. Who else do we have?
Who, by the way, is the author of The Handmaid's Tale?
Yes. Another character is Dorothy Thompson, who is Sinclair Lewis's wife, and she interviewed Hitler, and at the time she thought him, inconsequential.
He's a
and
clown.
small.
He's a clown, right?
Right. But then she also said the enemy of what will enable this guy, I'm paraphrasing, is complacency. And I think that's what we're trying to target here. So what people will see is people standing up. So player 1, it can't happen here. A statement, a declarative statement, an ironic statement. And then players begin to make the correspondence. In 1936, the tide of authoritarian dictatorship was flowing. Player 1, in 2024, the tide of authoritarian dictatorship is flowing. Player 3, in 1936, Adolf Hitler's stormtroopers reoccupied the Rhineland. A signal of a forbidden German rearmament went unopposed. Player 2, in 2024, Vladimir Putin began the 3rd year of his full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and so on. But it's also fun. There are funny moments. We hear from Father Coughlin. We hear from someone who plays Tucker Carlson. We are not mentioning nearly any politician by name. I think there is one vice president named in here, but
But essentially, this is explaining the potential of a fascist leader in America.
yes, exactly. Lewis's play was named Winfried Jessup, and so he is a charlatan who is running for president. He is accruing, populist power and telling a lot of lies, and the correspondence between what he was saying and what the far right was promising at that time, that's what Sinclair Lewis is mocking. Today, we don't really even need, Jamie Raskin comes in here. Today, we don't even really need someone else's Toni Morrison, someone else's Joe McCarthy. So it skips around in history. But what the point it's making, Jane, is that we don't need to look at fiction right now. We can take things right out of the news. We can take the Supreme Court decision
Yes.
of this week. Uh, Deborah mentioned the Chevron decision. We could talk about the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade, and we don't necessarily mention all these things on the stage. It's meant to make the viewer think and participate. And afterwards, we're going to have a reading of the Declaration of Independence together.
Wonderful. We got a break coming up. We're going to continue this conversation. Deborah Clifton is one of our guests, former actress with Theater X. Jackie Leiden, author and Wisconsin State Chair, for Writers for Democratic Action. She's also on the National Steering Committee. Stay close. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Just don't know what else to do about it. Jane said, Jane Paperback
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin B. coming to you live from our studio in downtown Waukesha. My guests, Deborah Clifton, a former actress with Theater X, Jackie Leiden, Wisconsin native, author, also the Wisconsin State Chair for Writers for Democratic Action, and she is on the National Steering Committee as well. They're here to talk about a free stage dramatic reading of the Sinclair Lewis novel, It Can't Happen Here Again. That will happen July 19th at the Waukesha Public Library at 4 p.m. And Jackie, you had said too, there are a number of performances that are going to be happening in Milwaukee.
Yes, I'll just whip through them quickly. July 18th, Anodyne Coffee Roasters at 6 o'clock. July 19th, 1 o'clock at Garden Park Theater, which is on Locust Street near the Woodfield Pattern Book Center. Also that day at 4 o'clock is going to be
Waukesha Public Library.
Waukesha Public Library, and then that evening, 2 performances, one at Sugar Maple at Bayview at 8 and one at, ZAO Church, at 7. So, yeah.
Wonderful. We will get the link to this website if
Yes.
you want to check out any of these events and where they're happening. As well, I think it's important to reiterate that if you would like to perform this in your own community, you can absolutely do that.
Can I say just one thing really important? This a lot of we have so much talent in this area because of actors like Deborah and her husband John Kishline. This was organized by our mutual friend Jim Pickering,
Mhm.
who is dean of the Milwaukee Acting
Yes.
School, 50 odd years with Milwaukee Rep. So we have over a dozen actors doing these things for free in these venues. Of course, everyone's welcome to do them anywhere, but I'm proud that we have professional
Absolutely.
talent.
Absolutely. Big names in the Milwaukee theater
Yes.
community. Absolutely.
And it's wonderful that it's just an extension of what the WPA started
It is.
when actors were out of work. And, actors are not really well employed anymore. It's been a
Challenging.
challenging of the demise of the National Endowment for the Arts because someone like Jesse Helms many years ago decided to pick on it, where we had to sign an agreement that we would to get a grant for from the National Endowment for the Arts, we would have to promise not to do any homoerotic literature.
Remember the Robert Mapplethorpe stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's a legacy.
And it's a challenge. It's an ongoing challenge because actors have always gotten so rich. Yeah, that's a fallacy.
Some.
Deborah, we've talked about this a little bit before you joined us on the air, and you and your husband, John Kishline, used to live in Whitefish Bay, and you have since moved out to Waukesha.
Right. We've lived in Milwaukee, worked in Milwaukee Theater X until 20. Theater X existed until 20 something. I was there. I can't remember.
That's all
Anyway,
right.
and we've worked at the Rep, the Chamber Theater, Next Act, many of the Milwaukee theaters. My husband and I have also worked frequently in Chicago. But now we are in Waukesha, where I grew up in my childhood home. My grandmother owned it, and then my mother
Oh,
took over.
lovely.
Yes, both my grandmother and my mother were under 5 feet tall, and my husband and son are over 6 feet. The house shrunk. Anyway, so here we are in Waukesha, and we've had an interesting time. We have neighbors who are both kind of a mixed marriage. One is Republican, one is very Democrat. Their children are also separated that way. So conversations are good. Most of my neighbors, we can find common ground, but not necessarily the same candidate.
Interesting.
It is. It is. We all think that corporate greed has overtaken the U.S., but what to do about it? They don't think the Democrats can handle it. I don't think the Republicans will do anything about it.
That's who pays their well. I mean, that's who buys the wait. Let me phrase that. Yeah, that came out wrong. I do find it interesting, and I mentioned this to you as well when we were not on the air. We go to the Waukesha Farmers Market every Saturday, and I try to go down there at least once a month. It's a lovely event, and it's just interesting to see because every time I have gone down there, there are 1 to 3 women usually who will sidle up to the table and whisper, "I really like your station. Thank God you're here. Thank God you're here." It's like
True.
they're confessing,
Well,
and they don't want necessarily anyone else to know.
it's interesting because my husband and I have canvassed a couple of neighborhoods this election cycle and the last election cycle. And every one of our people that we go to see, they're all given to us by the Democratic Party, so we know that they're Democrats. They don't believe that there's anyone else around them that thinks like them.
They think they're an island.
And they're not. There are a lot of people in Waukesha proper. I don't know about Waukesha County, but you
I'm
can
in
speak to
Waukesha
that.
County,
You're
and
in
I think it's the same.
everything.
Well, and as you said too, Deborah, it's about we agree on far more things, I think, than the people who would like to see us divided.
Mhm.
We want good educations for our children. We want clean water to drink and to kayak in and canoe in. We want childcare that is adequate and fair, not just for families, but for the childcare workers. We all agree that corporate greed is out of control. And most of us now agree that the Supreme Court has been bought off.
Right.
Yes. So I'm in Delafield, and it's funny. I was listening to what Deborah was saying. I'm in my childhood home too, after many years out on Lake Nagawicca. So it goes around, comes around after living out east and other places. And it's interesting to see in Delafield the community, in particular, Democrats are there. It's mixed, and people that might vote one thing below the top of the ticket
Yep.
than something else.
Well, that's how we ended up with Governor Evers getting reelected and Ron Johnson getting elected.
Yes.
That's why we're a purple state.
During the last election cycle with Trump and Biden the last time, somehow we got the Waukesha Freeman delivered to our house. I was grateful for that one, only because it reported that Waukesha County, I believe, had no vote, 6,000 votes that did not vote for president. They voted down ballot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
And that's not the answer.
No.
That isn't the answer. Everybody must go out and vote. In August, for the August 13th primary, there are two really, really important constitutional amendments that you should vote no.
Because they're so
Because
confusing.
they're so, well, and intentionally so.
Yes.
And will yet consolidate more of the power of the purse over to the Republican-held legislature, where they just love to sit on money, apparently, because they never distribute it back to the people. And it's also critically important that people vote in November. I understand people are despairing. I understand people are discouraged. That's not the answer. The answer is to do things like this.
Absolutely.
Perform this play. Take this to your community. Volunteer to be a poll worker. Volunteer to write postcards. Don't sit back and say there's nothing we can do. That's not true. We can do this. We can absolutely do this. I encourage you to go see. It can't happen here again. The one in Waukesha, July 19th, 4 p.m. at the Waukesha Public Library. Other performances going on in Milwaukee and around the state. We'll get the link in to your website in our show notes. Ladies, thank you so much. Deborah Clifton and Jackie Leiden, thank you for joining us today on Matenaer On Air.
Thank you. Terrific. Thank you.
News is coming up next when we return. Public service announcement with Dr. Laura Hanks. Stay close. You're listening to the Civic Media Radio Network.
You must return it, you can send it here. But I need a break and I want to be a paperback writer. Paperback writer. Paperback writer.
morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Sweet Kelby coming to you live from our studio in downtown Waukesha. You can join us, call or text, same number, 855-752-4842. That's 855-75-CIVIC. Leave a comment on the live stream if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. If you want to catch baseball tonight, Brewers at the Dodgers, kind of a late one, 8:35 as they're out on the left coast. You can listen to the game live on News from the Center, WRCE in Richland Center, or 98Q Country, WCQM in Park Falls, 98.3 FM. Brewers at the Dodgers tonight at 8:35. She joins us every Wednesday at this time for public service announcement. Dr. Laura Hanks is here. We are playing Where in the World is Dr. Hanks today? Is she in OR? Is she home with pink eye? Where is she? Where is she now? Good morning, Dr. Hanks. Where are you?
Good morning. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin today.
At home in Madison.
Or I'm at my clinic, I should say, not at my house.
So still working. She's always
still working.
Always doctoring.
Yeah, seeing patients this morning, and yeah.
Kids are fine. You're fine.
For once.
No breakouts at your house that we need to be updated on?
No. I got a really cute GI bug last week, so got to lose a couple pounds, for hot girl summer or whatever the kids are calling it these days.
Is that what I need? I need a good GI infection.
No,
to get
I
to my
don't.
goal weight.
I've always wanted a tapeworm.
No, we don't want that. This is an interesting article and something I had never even considered, Dr. Hanks. And this is an article from a WPR from Colleen Leahy, and the headline says, "Fathers suffer from postpartum depression too."
Yeah.
I would never have thought that was a thing.
My first reaction when I saw the title of it was just like, I got to admit, it was a little bit of an eye roll. I was just thinking of Greg being like, "Oh, it's all about the men." I know.
Of course, it's all about me.
You always make it so silly, Greg. But
I'm a silly man.
But then when I read it, I did find it very interesting. And I think that just in general, anything that's shining light on mental health in this country is an important read, and it's important to think about. Yes, men aren't going through labor and delivery and carrying a pregnancy. That was like my first thing is like, "Oh, poor you," But I don't think that's the right reaction to have. I think that it's, like I said, bringing awareness to mental health, and that having a baby, whether it's your first baby or your sixth baby, that changes the family dynamics, and that's going to change how you go about your day-to-day life. And it is important for both parents, whether that be mom, dad, or whoever is parenting that child and in the house with a child, to have good mental health, because we know that that's, you're portraying that behavior to not only the child, but also if you're not able to function because of your mental health, then you can't take care of a newborn baby. So I thought it was really good and an important thing to talk about.
Definitely. A University of Wisconsin-Madison social work professor, Tova Walsh, says she's glad people are paying more attention to postpartum depression in mothers, but she just published research on paternal mental health and said anyone of any gender can struggle after having a new baby to the point where you can reach clinical depression. This is a major life change, right, Dr. Hanks?
Absolutely. I mean, and you're tired, you're not sleeping when the baby first comes home. And so that we know that people that have a history of mental health disorders, this is going to make it worse. That's why we see increased postpartum depression with our patients that have a history of depression and anxiety. So I usually talk to them about that in pregnancy, but I think it's important and I usually tell them, like, are you talking with your partner? But, I think it's also that their partner's talking to them and kind of saying where they're at. And, parenting is hard and scary. And, I think that having that open communication is really good. Something else that this made me think of, I had a patient a couple of years ago who it was her fourth baby, and she was asking me about a doula. And we haven't talked much about doulas. I don't know if you guys ever did with Dr. Lyerly, but a doula.
I don't think so, no.
Okay. A doula is someone who's not like a medically trained professional, but they have experience with giving support during the birthing process. I've had, just like anything else, any other job, I've had good and bad experience with doulas, but I think they can be, there are studies that show that it can be really helpful in the birthing process for a lot of birthing people. So at any rate, long story long, I had a patient, it was her fourth baby, but it was first with her new partner. And she was like, I'm totally fine with this, but he's freaking out. So I'm wondering about getting a doula for him.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that was like great foresight, because she was like, I'm going to be like dealing with my stuff and I'm not going to have time to talk him off a ledge. So I need the doula to tell it. I was like, that is so interesting and insightful that I hadn't really thought about. So I think, knowing that a partner might want to be involved in not only birth and obviously, post birth, but figuring out those different ways and these systems that we already have built into our society that can help them be more involved. I think that's great.
We're talking about men suffering from postpartum depression. According to a new study, men experiencing postpartum depression tend to show avoidant behaviors like isolating themselves, spending less time with their families. They might start drinking more or throwing themselves more into work or hobbies. And men also might show fewer open signs of sadness.
Yes.
Because that's an embarrassing thing.
We are not a we're not a group of people who are encouraged or brought up to show their emotions. And that is, I'm just going to say it's a failure. It's a failure from society. And we're just coming out of Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's true. Even the most open people, like I consider myself a very open person. I consider myself, I can talk about my feelings. Do I talk about my feelings? No. For various reasons. It's all mixed in, and it's hard to even broach a topic because you want to say, how do I talk about this? And people will just say, just talk about it. It's like, do you understand how difficult that is? Yeah. I mean, and I don't mean to bring up, this is not joking either, but like there is a strong sense of one, being a man, being a Midwesterner, being of a certain age,
Absolutely.
living in a world where there's so much strife and tragedy happening. You feel like, well, I'm feeling sad today, but who cares?
Look at this.
The Supreme Court just like changed the entire doctrine of our country. Why should I say anything? Just keep your head down, work, and hopefully, you don't harm yourself.
Yeah. And I think we're at a very interesting point generationally. Like we kind of grew up with these very like binary gender roles, and exactly what you're saying, Greg, of like, you're a man, you suck it up and you deal with it. Like you don't talk about your feelings, and females like, okay, you can cry some, but then you like go take care of the baby. And I think it'll be very interesting and to see kind of over the next couple of years. I think that we're much more blending gender roles. And even like in my own household, when we decided to have a baby, but I was in residency and I'm the primary breadwinner in our house. And so we decided my husband would stay home. And that was really hard for him. He's like, I hate to say this, I'm a feminist, but like, there's like a little part of me because of how I grew up and being the man, like that I'm not the breadwinner, and I have to ask you for money. And that was like a really hard thing for us to, we had a very open communication. I was like, I get it. I respect it. I don't want to, but I get where you're coming from. Cause I grew up in that same, like I watched my dad work and my mom stay at home. And so whether they were just, showing that behavior, but they always encouraged me to like, go, you can tackle the world as a woman, and like that was kind of the first generation to start really doing that, I think. And so it'll be interesting, the next couple of years, kind of how I'm hoping that there will be more, not only talk around mental health, but just like for people that identify as men to feel okay, like showing emotion, showing feelings, like talking and being more open about that.
I would hope that we would get there. Unfortunately, now I think there's a whole bunch of people on the far right, the incels, the people who follow Andrew Tate, the ones who
are all over my Instagram.
The ones who want to put sunshine on their testicles like Tucker Carlson, because I don't know what that does for you, but go ahead.
No one needs to be talking about Tucker Carlson's testicles. That's all
You can just stop it. No one needs to be talking about Tucker Carlson, but hey,
period.
Live your life. That's something that the binary issue, and I don't want, and this isn't a discussion for me about non-binary versus binary as far as like how you identify, but it's those binary places where it feels like if you want to be a true man, you have to accept your feelings and feel your feelings and talk about your feelings. You don't want to be toxic masculinity.
Right.
But the problem is that those aren't just so simple. It's not black and white. It's nuanced. And there, there's a part of me that wants to mow the lawn. I feel like it's my job as a guy to mow the lawn because my dad mowed the lawn. Can my wife do it? Absolutely. She's capable and she wants to. But it's that thing of, my wife is the primary breadwinner in the family. My wife makes more money than I do. And I have no problem. I'm not threatened by powerful, smart, capable women. But what I'm left with is this feeling of I don't feel like a equal contributing partner in the relationship. If she has to buy something that I can't, I feel like, well, here we go. And she never holds it against me.
Right.
Mhm.
But it's coming from you and your own conditioning.
Exactly. It's that thing of just, and my parents weren't like, be a man. My father hugged me, kissed me, let me cry, told me he was proud of me, told me he loved me. But I still feel these feelings of binary status of man in this world and how we're supposed to feel and how we're supposed to act. I mean, it bothers me how much I love working in my garage. And I'm not even kidding you. Like
Yeah.
my garage looks like a manly man wood shop now. And I'm like, but is this me? It's brings up a lot of feelings. I feel a lot of feelings, Jane. And I feel a lot of feelings, Dr. Hanks.
Well, and to your
I
credit,
love
Greg
that.
Buck, I do want to point this out, and you have shared this openly. You have sought out therapy.
I have.
You have had therapy.
Yeah.
And you're not afraid to talk about it and talk about the importance of it.
Yes.
And that's why I think, too, just talking about this, men can experience postpartum depression. You're not crazy.
Yeah.
This is, if you are feeling these feelings, find someone to talk about with to help you sort out these feelings. And it doesn't have to
100%.
be someone in your circle. It doesn't have to be a friend. There are professionals who can handle this where you can go to a place where you're not going to be getting judged.
Yeah. I would go as far as to say, if you're going to talk to a friend or a loved one about this, talk to them with the intention of going to therapy when you want to. See if you, I'm sure if you are a person in this world, you can take 10 people in your life. One of them has gone to therapy. About having someone support you in your journey to seek, because I do think that there is something far greater in speaking to someone who is objective. You pay them, so you have to get something out of this, and they have no skin in the game.
Right.
They got to be team you, but they also got to call you out on your BS. And a lot of times friends don't do that all the time because they feel bad. They might be in a position of like, I don't know I'll break up with him. I have no idea.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think therapy is good I think everyone should be talking to an objective party on a regular basis.
I tell my patients that all the time. That's one of my ways to kind of take the stigma away. I'm like, everyone should see a therapist. I think, I think that, and to your point, Greg, too, like, a third party that's not involved in you. Cause like you said, a friend is like, well, if they don't break up, then I'm the jerk that told them to break up,
Yeah.
whereas a therapist has no skin in the game as far as like, if you like them or not, or if, so I think it is important to have a good support network, but also it's not instead of, but also a therapist as well.
Yeah.
She joins us every Wednesday from 11:30 to 12 for public service announcement. Dr. Laura Hanks is here. When we return, different ways you can hurt yourself over the summer and what to do if you get a fish hook in your foot.
Oh, we're having a contest?
Yes,
All right.
That's all on the way. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, the Calvinator on the board. You can always join us. Call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. She joins us every Wednesday at this time for public service announcement. If you ever have a question for Dr. Laura Hanks, please email it in. You can send it to Jane Says, JaneSays, Jane Says at civicmedia.us. We're happy to talk about it the following week. Here to answer your questions. Doesn't always have to be OBGYN related, Dr. Hanks. She's a doctor. She knows what she's doing. I don't know if I would ask you to do brain surgery, tomorrow. But Dr. Hanks is a wonderful, wonderful doctor.
Perfect question for the doctor. We were talking about this before about, being associated with different people from different backgrounds of life, MIT adjacent, lawyer adjacent. I know you. I know Dr. Liley. My brother-in-law is a neurological oncologist. So all those three together basically make me a doctor, right? I'm a doctor, basically, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
sure. I think you're muted.
You're muted, Dr. Liley.
Or Dr.
Hanks. Dr. Hanks. Oops.
Am I still muted?
Calvin. There we go. Now you're back.
There we go.
I'm back. Yeah, you're basically a doctor. Just like throw a couple 100,000 like in the lake and call it a medical.
Don't got that kind of money. That was your problem. Suckers.
We're going to talk about just 4th of July is tomorrow, and a lot of people heading out on long weekends. And I just wanted to have, some reminders for folks about some general first aid things, because unfortunately, and I hate to be a downer, but people drown. And there are still people who don't know how to swim. And there are, Greg.
I'm not laughing at it. It was a funny phrase.
But there are boating accidents.
Yeah.
People get hit by propellers. People get drunk and fall off boats. And so let's start with a water emergency, Dr. Hanks.
Water safety. Well,
water safety.
So first, as we'll do like a funny side story. So I was in the Peace Corps in the South Pacific, and I kind of won the lottery. I got to go to the South Pacific, right? But we actually had a water safety day as part of our training, and literally it was going snorkeling so they could show us all the dangerous fish there were, so we didn't die, and also float with the current if you get in and I was just like, this is awesome. But no, in all seriousness, I think accidents can happen, and I think that it's really important, especially if alcohol is involved, having someone sober that's driving your boat, because there's going to be a lot of people in the water.
Yep.
So being aware of that. Now, I think you brought up a good point too, that some people don't know how to swim, and that's fine. But if you are someone that doesn't know how to swim and you see someone that looks like they're struggling, please don't go in after them, because you're going to make a bad situation worse. If you don't feel confident in your swimming abilities, try to find someone else around, try to find a floating device that you could maybe throw to them instead. But, trying to be the hero, if you're not able to keep your head above water, you're just gonna create two victims. So
yeah.
I think being aware of your own abilities, or if you've been drinking, don't go in and try to help somebody, because it's just gonna create more problems. As to other things, of course, like we talked about with the heat wave a couple of weeks ago, your sunscreen, hydration, getting out of the sun, getting in the shade, especially if you have young kids, making sure you're putting on sunscreen like every hour if you can, wrestle them into it. Wearing sunscreen.
You got to pin them. You got to pin them down. They get slippery. They get slippery when they're covered with the sunscreen.
You sound like you tried.
We don't have time.
Yeah, right. So I think all of those things are really, really important too.
I think something too, there is nothing. I just went to DC recently, and I saw the original documents of the country, and nowhere in the Constitution, Bill of Rights, or Declaration of Independence does it say you have to get wasted on July 4th either. But if you're drinking, have a cocktail, have a drink, have some water. Back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Don't keep going, but make sure you stay hydrated. It'll help stave off that hangover. And also there's no reason to get wasted.
Well, and as Dr. Hanks said too, you've had a couple of drinks and you're feeling like a hero.
Yeah.
You need to be really, really careful because I think we all tend to overestimate our abilities when we've had a couple.
Yeah.
I know I become considerably more attractive. Just throwing that out.
I've texted lots of people who don't want to hear from me.
But, like you said, Dr. Hanks, you had a couple drinks. If you are not that strong of a swimmer, don't make you the one who's going to make this rescue.
Yeah.
If you are on an ATV and you've had a couple drinks, maybe you should go along as a passenger. If you don't know how to swim and you're going to be on a boat, that's what life jackets are for.
Exactly.
Don't be embarrassed. I'm sorry if it's not going to ruin your tan a little bit. You can even it out later.
Yeah. And then you can float in the water and have your drink, and then you don't have to worry.
I love this.
Win.
Options.
Yeah.
Options, doctor.
Options, absolutely. And of course, too, if worst case scenario, there's an ATV accident, something like that, you want to call for help, right, Dr. Hanks? This isn't something you're going to diagnose out in the field, and you certainly don't want to move someone who might have a head injury.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you think there's any risk of head injury, we do lots of training to stabilize neck injuries and things like that. So please don't touch them. Call 911. You can make sure they're breathing. If you do have, if you're someone that has CPR training, at the very least, you can do, go through those steps. But if you don't, just wait for the professionals, and hopefully you're near enough by. I think if you're going to remote place, I know a lot of people go up north, you can kind of look and see where the closest ER is, and if you want to make sure that you're nearby. Also, please don't drink and set off fireworks.
I bet you see lots of those in the emergency department.
Yeah, it's just not pretty.
No, and ambulance rides are paid out of pocket, so just keep that in mind as well. That can get real pricey. Dr. Laura Hanks joins us every Wednesday at this time for public service announcement. Thank you so much, Dr. Laura. You're going to be with us next week?
Yes, I will be with you guys next week, and then I'll be heading to Italy after that, so we can talk.
Nice.
Whatever.
I have a date with Taylor Swift.
Oh, great. Oh, that's great.
I want video.
We'll talk more.
News is coming up next. Thank you, Calvin and Greg and our engineers. Without you, nothing works. Thank you most of all to you for calling and texting and listening. It means absolutely everything. Have a wonderful and safe 4th of July. And I hope you find some joy over the next couple of days and you have the chance to share it. News is next. Keep it here on the Civic Media Radio Network.